Hi, everybody. This is John from AU Pack Mule. Thank you for coming and watching us talk about Westworld, Season 2, Episode 8, Kiksuya. And I can't imagine anybody not liking this that is a Westworld fan. Somebody that combines the natural cowboys and Indians with the robots, and this has just been perfect for me. So I give it a 10. Today we're going to be joined by Mrs. Cronall. I'll call her Catherine for this video. She has been talking to me about Westworld since its inception back in October of 2016, and I finally got her on my channel, so I'm so excited. This has been a lot of fun. Johnny will probably be joining us a little bit later, and I'll be listening for him. And as soon as he comes on, I'll have him introduce himself. But in the meantime, Mrs. Cronall, would you like to say hello?
Hi, everybody. Some of you might know me as Catherine Cronall in the chat from like years ago. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm hoping that everything is okay on my end. Yeah, I absolutely adored this episode. Definitely a 10 out of 10 for me. Anyone who knows me, and I like to talk a lot, I'm Irish, so that's to be understood. But definitely Ghost Nation since the first series, like since a couple of episodes into the first series, they're definitely the ones I wanted to know a lot more about. So this episode was perfect for me. Absolutely perfect the whole way. I might even give it 11 out of 10 just to be awkward.
No, that's perfect. I couldn't agree with you more. It's been so much fun watching this one. What we're going to do today, instead of going scene by scene like so many other channels have, I thought we'd do some questions to each other. And I know Johnny has some questions, especially with the Maeve storyline, because he's done theory videos on his own about Maeve. So I definitely want to get his questions answered too. In the meantime, do you want to start? Oh, before I do that, your husband, I don't know if anyone has told you this, but he looks exactly like Tommy Dunn he's the weapons master from Game of Thrones. Do you know who that is?
Okay. I not only do I know him, I actually one of my friends is best friends with, or is very good friends with his daughter.
Oh, is that right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Do you know what he looks like, and you know exactly what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I don't see it, but yeah, I'm sure. It's a particular bald Irish look. It's particularly like a bald Dublin look as well. So
well, when I hear him talk, it's just perfect for me.
I actually have two like input ideas from him that he like really wanted me to put to you as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'll make sure I've written them down. So because he loved this episode too. He's a big Westworld fan too.
Great. Yeah, love it. Awesome. So do you want to start off since you're the guest?
So would you like to start with questions, or what would you like to start with?
Yeah, I think questions in general would be great.
Okay. So everything that I loved about this episode, the cinematography, the fact that they got back to a Western narrative, which I felt like was missing this season, that kind of Western heart. I mean, it is called Westworld, and I know there are other worlds here, but that hero's journey I really absolutely adored. And before we start, Zane McLaren, I mean, unbelievably captivating. Ivan kept calling him statuesque because he was just, anytime he was on the screen, I felt sorry for everybody else because you're just drawn to him. And I couldn't believe how much I underestimated what he was going to bring to the table. I think Ivan said he's in Fargo or something, so I haven't seen that. But so just with that in mind, that kind of hero's journey, my biggest question coming out or going into our discussion, I guess, is the idea of the cornerstone narrative and the importance of having that pair, like the couple. And does it get to a point where Delos or Ford, whoever, they have to decide, okay, that those hosts are too attached, now we need to separate them and we need to put one in cold storage and take one away? I mean, I'm not entirely sure like, because obviously Maeve is really attached to her daughter. Then we had Sakura, and I can't remember the other girl's name from Shogun World.
Akane.
Yeah, and then now you have Akecheta.
I had it in my mouth before you said it. Akecheta.
Akecheta, thank you, and Kohana. So I wondered about the idea of the pairs. Like, there's good reasons for separating them, but there seems to be other reasons for having them in cold storage. Is there a certain point where they become too attached that it's dangerous? I'm not sure if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, the impression that I got from this episode was that Kahana was actually randomly found by the QA team, or whoever, whatever you want to call the guys in the white suit with the red trim. Mm-hmm. That's what I got the impression that they were.
So, but they didn't return her.
Right, because they only bring her back. Their job is just to bring them back. It's more the behaviorist and the narrative people that decide where they're going to put her.
But like they don't put her back into her narrative necessarily then.
Right, they replaced her with another host body.
Because I just wondered, well, was she that broken that they didn't return her to that narrative, or is it just that if you glitch out, that's it, you're gone?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, but in the first episode, Maeve started having some strange behavior, and so they called it aberrant behavior, and they were going to put her in cold storage until they were manipulating her attributes, and that's when they decided to keep her. With Kahana, I think it was because she was so far off her loop. She was found so far out, and she probably was telling the people in her state of, what do they call that, analysis, that Akecheta had found this door and they were going to go find a new world and yada yada yada, that they probably were like, oh, we can't have that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm very interested in, because it seems to me that the person who has, I think she's lost her pair, if she's lost her kind of her partner completely, and that's Dolores, because I think her partner was Arnold. And Teddy isn't really filling that whole, Abernathy isn't really filling that in. Sorry, that sounded wrong. But you know what I mean. Abernathy and Teddy, as much as she kind of plays along with empathizing, I feel sometimes with them and being in love and needing them, it's nowhere near on the same level as what Maeve and Aki have been showing us. So there seems to be something about needing, with some of the hosts at least, even Teddy does need Dolores, I guess, but there seems to be something about needing a partner host in certain, for me, that seems to be what I'm getting in certain of the key kind of protagonists, with certain key protagonists. I'm not sure what you think, but yeah, it makes sense about Kohana being way out of her loop, that they're not going to get her back. But yeah, I was interested in the Alpha 1, Alpha 2 thing as well.
Yeah, we'll probably get to
Johnny.
that.
Yeah,
I'm sure. So we've just been joined by Johnny B. Crazy. He is super crazy, and he comes up with some crazy theories. Sometimes they're even to make fun of me. So I will introduce Johnny and let him say hi to everybody and what you rated this episode as.
Hey everyone, how's it going? I want to say thank you, AU, for having me on, and hello, Miss Cronall. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
This probably the best episode so far, in my opinion. Maybe it's because it's so fresh, but I don't know. It was really, it gave you everything except humor, but didn't really need it this episode. I'd give it at least 9.5 out of 10. But I'm pretty generous.
Yeah, 9.5 is awesome. Catherine gave it an 11, so I
spinal tapped it. And it's an episode. it's an episode on paper that probably shouldn't work as an episode 8. You know, it's pretty much all in subtitles. It's surrounding a character we don't really know. It breaks a lot of, I thought that a lot of the theories that I had, especially around Ford, it's kind of messed me up completely. And it really places Dolores as the main antagonist for everybody here, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you guys think she's gonna make it past the season?
I hope not. I'm over her. I haven't enjoyed her arc at all this season.
Sorry.
I know Alicia didn't really like Dolores's arc this season either. Yeah, no, I haven't enjoyed it. I don't know about you guys.
I could see Ford having Bernard kill her. I think Ford needs her for now. A couple of different reasons, in my opinion. It's part of her plan. I mean, he wrote that narrative for the most part. I mean, it is her rage, it is her revenge, but he wrote that. He needs it for some specific reason. And I was watching Leslie Cortez. I know that ain't the episode we're talking about, but when Bernard's remembering Abernathy, where his control unit is sitting in a receptacle, and he grabs it out of the receptacle, looks like another place where perhaps a cradle could be. So maybe a human simulator cradle, as far as human consciousness. And there's what I'm thinking is one part of what's in there. I think there's a lot of other things that are inside the valley beyond, so to speak. But the concept of a door and even the spiral symbol, which I think represents a lot of things, including a portal, would really make sense if they did go into, I don't know how they could tie it in, but if they went into the human simulator to get away, because I don't think the exit to the park's there. They're not going to get out of the park from there. The only other place they could go is a simulation, in my opinion. But y'all go ahead and run with that.
So Catherine was asking about the story for Kohana, why they didn't put her back in the story, in the narrative back in her home. Remember when she was replaced, and Akecheta thought she was a ghost now?
Well, I mean, they need her. Well, that's kind of Akecheta's drive at this point. That's why he wants to set every host free, or can't remember exactly how he worded it. It was very beautiful, but he wants to tell them all that there's a better place than this world. That this world, what Logan said, isn't right. But yeah, I think it would have dampened down the character a little bit. That's probably the main reason they didn't bring it back.
It was such a beautiful story. Like the way McLaren can have you fear him in an instant and then like completely empathize with him. Like that moment when he wakes up to go look for her, like he just kind of turned it on a dime. Just tugging at the emotions. But yeah, I guess we'll get into that whole scene, because that might be the only scene that people would have a problem with, I guess, him waking up and finding her.
For sure. Yeah, he's played I know we are all Game of Thrones fans, and he's been working with Jason Momoa on other projects. Frontier is one of them, Red Road is another. And so it was really cool to have Jason, post on Instagram how he was really proud of him and everything. So I thought that was pretty cool. The other guy with the teardrops that Maeve talks to in a previous episode, those two have worked together in a bunch of projects. So I thought that was pretty cool, that the ability for them to work together, and who he was without his white paint was pretty cool too. I thought they really did a great job. Huge
transformation, actually. I watched the behind the scenes HBO interview with him, and he said it was really important for him to be able to bring like his Lakota identity to this episode in particular. It kind of made me want just a spin-off with him. I'll just watch him do anything now at this stage. He was fantastic.
Cool.
So I got a question.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to
Well,
ask you your question since you're the guest.
Do you think Akecheta's gonna die trying to save Maeve's daughter?
How dare you, Johnny? I just said I want a spin-off.
I know, but you know.
The spin-off is called Akecheta Lives. Akecheta.
I guess they could have copies somewhere. I don't know. I mean, it would make sense. It certainly would make sense. It's interesting because as far as I know, he's the only character to put himself out for a character that isn't necessarily part of his narrative, right? Nobody else has done that yet. There's a lot of things with him that, like, I have been questioning. I know you have as well. How is Maeve Ford, or how sentient are like Maeve and Dolores? Because they're so stuck to their narratives. They're so defined by them. But the big thing with him is that he is putting himself out there for somebody that accidentally came into his narrative, and they didn't necessarily have to have their paths cross at the moment they met, right? The other big, huge, massive thing is that him and parts of his tribe have already invented their own culture, independent of their narrative. That's huge. We haven't seen anyone do that. It's so huge. So I could easily see him sacrifice himself for Maeve's child in a way that maybe no one else would do. Maybe no other host is in a position to do right now.
Right. I don't necessarily want it to happen, so to speak, but I could see it going down that way. As far as Maeve being Ford, it's possible at some point. I just don't see them going that route quite yet. Just because Ford even said the technology wasn't ready yet. But she is an anomaly, almost like Akecheta is. Mm-hmm. They are. She could be a mistake. Now I know that we don't have. She's not an original host that we know of. Akecheta is. So I'm pretty sure Ford built her himself. Would you agree with that, AU?
Ford built Maeve.
Maeve, right?
Yeah, Maeve. He would have had to, because she was not part of the original group. The beta group, I guess, is the best way to put it, and she wasn't part of the alpha group either. So, yeah, that's actually my first question is Maeve a remake of Kahana, meaning that they were able to take her CPU and make a new host for it? I know Johnny made a video saying Maeve might have been Akecheta's wife in a sense. And what makes me ask that question is at the very end of the episode, we get the words, "Take my heart with you." And like I said, we know Maeve wasn't an original beta or alpha creation, and Akecheta definitely is watching her and her daughter.
I assumed she said that because he had told her that part of the story. I assumed because he was telling that story through
to the daughter.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I assumed that's why she repeated it. I never thought of it like that. If she isn't Kohana, if Kohana is still around, they were all let go, weren't they, out of cold storage? So she could be out there wandering around. I hope she's not a bit like zombie Clementine, though.
Well, aren't all those that were in cold storage Wyatt's cronies?
But what happened to them since? They were let go during when Ford was killed, right?
Right. The Wyatt guys with the black on their face were released prior to the gala.
That's right. Okay. What I was gonna say on the "Take my heart with you when you go," I took it as Maeve's daughter being her heart, and that's what she was talking about. Now there could be something more to it. I would like there to be, because my theory video would be right, but I don't see it, especially with the Hector storyline and love plot line there. So
it would make this storyline with Sakura as well mean a lot more, I think, when they bury her heart or burn her heart. So yeah, I think it would be a really nice kind of cyclical thing for Maeve's. It makes Maeve's arc so much more like weighty and meaningful than Dolores's this series. They really are pumping everything into her character. Maybe they didn't expect her to be such a fan favorite.
Right. Well, they also did the same kind of carry my heart thing with you with Etu, the other tribes member with the braid of hair, the lock of hair that he brought back for. That was very touching. But Akecheta seems to think he can find Kohana behind the door for some reason. I don't know why. I don't think he knew what he was looking at. It just looked like a complete different world. And if you really look at it, it does look like all the pillars and possibly Tesla coil type things that are down there. It does look like big old, like a weird looking city possibly. So I think he's just mistaken, and Ford being Ford is just letting him roll with it. His little flower blooming in the dark. So,
Johnny, you got another question you want to ask?
Oh, it's possible. Did Grace lie to the man in black when she told him she wanted to take him back home with her? Did she lie to him then, or did she lie to Akecheta?
Catherine,
you know what I'm saying?
That first?
I actually had a similar question revolving around the plan there. What's worse than killing Man in Black? I don't think she's lying. I think she's going to take him home, but I think it's going to be what's worse than dying is being Delos, right? Delos 1. What was he? 129th or how many Delos versions were there? But I think never allowing him, never destroying him, and never. It's kind. I don't know if you've seen that episode of Black Mirror where they have criminals that are forced to relive their crime, like as their victim. I wonder, could she do something similar to him? And so I do think she's going to take him home, but not necessarily. I mean, there's a lot of theories out there after this episode. Is he even human now, right? Because, how do you survive that the way he's surviving it? Because he's been shot like, I think, Johnny, did you say last week you think he was shot like in the lung or something? Did you say that last week?
He got shot right below the heart. He had to get hit in the lung.
Yeah.
I think, like, this goes back to there being a human consciousness simulator in the Valley Beyond. If she puts him in there to relive his most horrible moments in life, that would be hell.
Great.
He could never get out.
Yeah.
But is she that mad? Or, it's hard to, we're going to find out next episode.
Johnny, I got totally distracted by the chat. Can you tell me what your question was again?
It was about whether, well, basically what Grace's true intentions are. Whether she really wants to get him out of the park, or whether she wants to punish him, or both. Oh,
I thought it was lying about to the man in black.
Well, I reworded it, but yeah, that's basically it. Well, which part was a lie? Because one part had to be a lie. There you go.
Why do you say one had to be a lie? Because I'm assuming that she was genuine when she talked to him the first time, and then when her dad screwed her, basically, she was like, "This is not going to work. It's got to go. He's got to be punished."
But I don't know. That would be kind of if she's that mad about. I don't know. She could be that mad about it, but she would already had to been so mad that she wanted to punish him anyway, in my opinion, because that's kind of small potatoes. Just for the fact that he was making it clear that he thought she was a host, and that he didn't believe her. And so I don't know. It's possible, but I don't see that as being the breaking point when she wanted to punish him.
I kind of, Lauren says that she believes William actually killed his wife. I feel like that there has to be something more. I mean, he's a shitty person, but there has to be something more to like to be deserving of the punishment that she's suggesting she wants to give him. I mean, he was a neglective asshole, but there's a lot of neglective assholes out there, and it makes me wonder. He hasn't been the nicest of people to hosts for sure, but it makes me wonder because something Aki says to Maeve, like the intentions are often misunderstood, and I want like we don't fully know the men, like we don't fully know William's intentions, and just in the same way that Aki and Ghost Nation had noble reasons to go after Maeve and the daughter, like they were watching her, but from Maeve's point of view, that wasn't though that it didn't seem noble. I wonder, could there be anything noble about Man in Black William's intentions? Is there something that's been, obviously there's something being hidden, but is there something good about his intentions that are being hidden? It makes me, he could easily have killed his wife, like Lauren said, but I'm not sure. Just that line, it made me reassess a lot in this episode. With Ford and Man in Black in particular. And Dolores, I think Dolores is the antagonist. She's gone from being protagonist to antagonist. So I think they could easily flip William's character again.
Yeah, I think he's the ultimate bad guy. He does kind of like what Martin did with Ned Stark, pulls us in and gets us so attached. And that's basically what the first episode was, or actually the second episode was, is we really get attached to this white hat wearing good guy. And then, I mean, he doesn't even want to do a bad thing in the second episode.
Both, right? Like, because we also see him pretty much, well, we assume he's raping Dolores in the first episode as well.
Right. That was when
we finally know that he's the same person, I guess.
Right. Exactly.
And, yeah. He had previously killed Maeve's daughter and Maeve like a week earlier.
Yeah.
Ain't that right? I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know about his intentions yet, because there's so many variables as to, I mean, we'll probably get into the alpha stuff. I know I've mentioned it twice, but there's so many variables now because of this episode. I feel it's been great for moving that kind of thing forward.
But I think to answer Lauren's question, I think she definitely has a great point. He's basically caused Logan to go crazy in a way. And as far as Juliet goes, it's still up in the air. If you want to say that she committed suicide because of his actions, it's still his fault, basically. We've had a lot of situations like that happen. So
I got a good question. What did he do in the park? There's something else that he did. If she did kill herself and he didn't kill her, there's something else he did besides just cheat on her with Dolores and kill a bunch of hosts.
Maybe she found out about her dad being recreated, 150 times. Mm-hmm. And that would, to me, that would make him be a monster.
Yeah, or Logan got some kind of tape or recording of MIB in the park, possibly. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, those kind of things, I don't know. I mean, everybody's different, but that would make me get angry, not depressed.
Yeah, so it's something significant.
Yeah. I get vengeance.
We have a comment in the chat from Laving Shadow. She's like, "Leave my Logan alone. He was just enjoying life." And this year he goes through quite a transformation. I know Lav hasn't seen it this year, so but yeah, he's definitely made a journey, and I think we're all fans of Logan now, rooting for him to make a full recovery. Well,
he's going to get his revenge somehow, I believe. at some point. I believe he's going to be the catalyst to cause the downfall of William's wife, which I can't remember her name, and I know you just said it.
Juliet.
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 Yeah.
There we go.
So,
And
AU Mr. C had a question.
Okay.
So there's that very surreal moment with Ford when Ake comes upon him and he's in this frozen scene. It's so surreal that made me wonder if it was even really happening, or was it something that was playing out in Ake's head. That Ford obviously was part of, but it just felt very surreal. It was something that he pointed out that I never really fully paid attention to until this episode. He asked, how sentient are these hosts if, when in analysis mode, he speaks perfect, unbroken English, but then when he's, speaking to Maeve's daughter, it's broken English with a heavy accent. It does make me wonder, like, how many. There's still a long way for them to go, right, before they can fully access everything. That's what he was wondering as well.
Are you saying because they go into or Mr. Cronall, what if he does go into analysis?
So when he's in analysis mode, his language ability is perfect with English.
Sure.
But then outside of that, it's not. But there shouldn't be a difference, right? If he can access.
Dolores in season 1 was country, and then when she went into analysis mode, she would go straight robot. Even Bernard's voice slightly changes.
Yeah.
I believe he talks like that. That's his identity. That is who he is. That's why I believe he talks that way, in my opinion.
Yeah, because like Maeve can already speak any language in the park, right?
Right.
So that suggests to me that she's still like way ahead of everybody.
And Lee said they all subconsciously know it.
Yeah, exactly.
He was telling Hector that.
Yeah, that's why Maeve's daughter was able to interpret what Akecheta was saying, during that conversation.
Well, I think he was speaking Lakota when he was speaking Lakota, he was speaking to Maeve, right? And English, he was speaking to the daughter.
No,
that's the way I read that.
Oh, okay. Well, I think from what I remember, he asked, "Or do I frighten you?" in English, and then when she looks at the man in black on the ground, then he starts talking in Lakota, and she, is able to understand what he's saying. But
I thought that was constantly though Maeve, that because he switches to English a couple of times. He switches to English when he says to her, "You saved me," and then we get that flashback of the daughter giving him water, and that's halfway through. So I assumed that, because I kind of twigged it about 2/3 the way through, he's talking to Maeve actually, not her. I don't know. I assumed the English part was just for the daughter, and then Maeve was kind of, I don't know if Maeve was entering the daughter, or like if he knew that she was there listening out through the daughter. That's how I assumed that was how it was going. Like I could have misread that.
Yeah, I think if you watch it again, it seems like because of his connection with her with the drink of water, that he was really speaking to her.
To the daughter.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And he says that in English.
In the beginning, and then finishes it in Lakota.
When he says that she gave him the water and saved his life.
Right. That was in Lakota. Because he was talking about going through the towns and being beaten up and fighting for his life, and some days were harder than the other. But then he
says to her, "You saved my life," in English, right?
No, the part that was in English was prior to that. It was asking if Akecheta scared Maeve's daughter.
I think he switches to English somewhere in the episode again to her.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. because I wrote down, but I could be wrong. I've only got to see it once, so I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think he was simultaneously communicating with them both at the same time, basically.
I really sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, you could tell that he knew that Maeve could see through her eyes. He knew he was talking to Maeve. I don't know at what point he knew, but I would assume he would know from the beginning. So yeah, that's all I was really going to say.
Okay. Yeah, I really wish I understood Mr. C's question, because it's important that when you're in analysis, it overrides your programming. Mm-hmm. So I think even if you're conscious, you would still not be in your narrative. I think that's the difference between the narrative, because if you go into analysis, even if you're from Shogun World, you'd speak English.
But so is Maeve like, are any of them capable of like denying their analysis mode at this stage?
I think Maeve was the only one that showed it, mm-hmm. where she pretended she was in analysis, mm-hmm. with Bernard, and then she just like faked him out.
Yeah,
that was the only time I remember someone being in analysis and not really talking normal. Yeah, I hate to use the word normal because anyways. So we got Mr. C's question. Johnny, do you have another question?
I do. All right, we see in the previews Ford standing over Maeve, and she's looked like she is not liking what she's hearing. Any of you guys got any thoughts on what Ford's telling her? Because in the previews, you can plainly tell it's Ford standing over the top of her.
Preview for next week, is it?
For next week, yeah. And
okay, I haven't seen it.
She's crying like really bad. I've paused it so many times. And you know he's going in as the guise of Bernard, but of course Maeve's going to be able to see him for who he truly is. I'm just, I don't think, Ford's not going to be able to transfer his consciousness or anything at that point. I don't believe. He'd have to take, he'd have to, I ain't even getting into all that. But he's going to tell her something devastating. Either what Dolores is going to do to her daughter, maybe, or, because he's got to have her to control Dolores, in my opinion. Dolores is going to do what she needs to do, and then she's going to have to be dealt with. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
I haven't seen it, so I don't know. So I can't help it.
But I mean, like, if Ford is talking to you, what do you think he's telling her as far as her fate?
Maybe he wants her to go after Dolores. That could be it. Like because I'm not. It seems I feel like Ford initially with, like, if Dolores is Alpha 1 or whatever, he initially had one like idea about how the host should be, what should drive the hosts, and that has changed. It has already changed by the time they get to Alpha 2. That has already changed. So whatever plan he thought he had with Dolores and hosts in general, I feel like it went wrong. And we already know that he changed his mind, right? We already know that he wasn't in agreement with Arnold, and then he changed his mind somewhere along the way about how independent these guys should be.
Yeah, I don't know if his independence is more for him destroying Delos, because I still don't feel like, I don't know. If he does want the host to live, I feel like he wants to be God. So there's going to be a catch.
So like Ford is our Dr. Frankenstein, right? He quotes Dr. Frankenstein a lot in the first season, and I feel like he had a very simplistic notion about what drives human beings. I think he thought survival of the fittest, human evolution, everything comes from a place of selfishness. And by the time we even get to someone like Ake and Maeve and everybody down the line, it seems to not have worked. Maybe that they needed some compassion or some ability to empathize or be selfless in some way sometimes in order for them to completely work as hosts. But for some reason, I don't know, it's just made me think that there seems to be an incredible lack of empathy in Dolores compared to the other hosts. And if he is asking Maeve to do something, it might be to do with Dolores. It might have something to do with the fact that she is very different from the rest of them and she needs to be taken out. Maybe. It might not be that simplistic.
Oh, it's fun to think about. Yeah, I got to be honest with you, Johnny. I didn't see that scene, so I really don't want to give an opinion at this point because it's just so. Those previews are intentionally misleading a lot of times, especially with the placement of where they are in the trailer, because everything in this story is not linear. So you have to throw most of it out. So. As far as we know, it's a backstory. So
standing over her flayed like she was. I mean, I can't say for sure, but I was just, hypothetical.
Yeah.
So do you guys think that Thandie Newton is going to make it this season? Because she's the one I'm most worried about, actually.
Oh no, she makes it.
Maeve. I hope so, because I really like her.
Johnny just did a video on Maeve not making it, or how she's going to make it, or who she's going to make it with. And I don't mean it that way, but so maybe you want to expand on that, Johnny.
I don't know. She's going to make it. I believe her daughter might not be so lucky. That might be our big letdown with Maeve. But I don't want to say that for sure. I'm almost positive Sizemore is going to help her at this point.
How appropriate is his name now that we've seen him naked?
I guess it's pretty appropriate.
Sorry.
I don't really think about Sizemore naked that much, but it is funny.
So speaking of naked Sizemore, Broke Blackman 94 has a question. Why did the man in black didn't want to know the language of the natives? Didn't want to know. I guess Maeve didn't want to know, or he didn't want Maeve to know. Seeing he was at the time looking for the clues. Oh, the man in black. Why the man in black didn't want to know the language of the natives? I got you. Sorry, Dave. Seeing that he was at the time looking for clues about the maze. So do you think the man in black was actually looking for the maze prior to him killing Maeve? And that's why he didn't know the language?
I don't think he was. He stated that that's what made him start looking for it. And if we can believe our eyes, there was a crop circle made by Akecheta in the middle of the yard that she fell into, and I'm guessing that's how he saw it, because he was putting it, Ake was putting it everywhere, anywhere he could find, and then they started to hide it, and then I think that's why you see Ford had them all stopped there, and he was checking all the scalps. He was seeing if all of them had it. Also, it looked like some kind of photo shoot for a narrative, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, I don't know if he was looking for the Maeve, if he was looking for the maze at that stage. I'm still a bit like I'm still a bit torn on him. I know he's a villain in that scene for sure, but I'm still a bit torn as to his timeline and things like that. I'm still not sure when he gets started fully.
Yeah, that makes me think of, if Grace had any communications with Ford before he died. I don't know why that made me think that. But,
that's scary.
but, if the end game is the door,
That is really
and
scary.
the door is a simulator, then that would all add up.
So
But,
do you think...
Sorry, go ahead, Catherine.
Oh, no. Well, I was just going to say, do you think he thinks Ford had the secret to solving the human consciousness problem that they were having with Delos? Do you think he thinks Ford was hiding that? Is that no?
The Delos people did, but he didn't.
I think the Man in Black has no opinion on Robert, because he knows who he is and his background and the situation with Arnold, and I think he's just a very bitter person with Robert at this point.
Yeah, like when Robert asked him, if you want to know the moral of the story, simply ask. He said, the man I'd be asking is 6 foot underground or is dead.
Yeah.
And Ford seemed to take that as a big insult. His face, like, he don't make many facial expressions, but he did then. You could really tell he didn't like that.
So what do you think he's looking for then, the Man in Black?
I think he's looking for a deeper meaning in his life, especially after his wife died and his daughter doesn't want to be around him. His other family members are all gone. So,
well, he's been looking for it before she died, though, right?
No, because he only came back to the park to see if he could get some sort of feeling in his life because of what his wife, because his wife committed suicide supposedly, and that's when he killed Maeve, and that's when he saw Maeve fall into the maze, and that's when he started this whole search for the maze, which brings up a point that David also brings up, that he actually scalps Kissy, who was a Native American, half Native American, I should say, because his other half was Cornhusker. Remember?
I just typed that.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, to answer BBM's question, I don't think he was conscious, but the MIB was definitely on the search for this. What's this maze and why is it important?
To your point, Miss Cronall, he said, I've been studying up on Native culture before he scalped him. So he wouldn't even study the language. That's interesting.
Yeah, it does seem a bit strange. The thing is, I mean, if you think, like, this episode for me is just mind-blowing that they had invented so many different aspects of culture where the other hosts hadn't. Not just Aki, like the other members of the tribe, they've like mind-blowingly, they've developed a mythos, like the others down below. I mean, that we have, like, that's incredible. They're not showing any other signs that, like, Maeve or Dolores or anything like that was showing, and yet they've developed a mythos independent of their narratives. So that's already like a huge red flag if people are paying attention. But they did a really good job in this episode of showing just how bad the techs are. They're just like, oh God, okay, just like throw them back in, just download what you need to do. Let's just get out of here. Let's just take a break. It just shows like they're just doing a 9 to 5 or whatever it is. They're not really, for years they've just been letting things slide. And that for me is just like any anthropologist going in there would go, whoa. You gotta get control on some of this shit.
Right.
It brings me to something I was thinking of. Okay, so we see the red-haired tech that come in and was asking about Ake. He hadn't been killed in 9 years, and he's alpha too. She freaked out about it, then all of a sudden, quietly put him back. Now, Bernard is one of a few different people that rotate in. He rotated out. Elsie said that he would rotate out. Why would Ford not have a host rotate in for Bernard instead of bringing a human in to the mix? So I'm thinking, this brings me to the question was, when did Ford actually download himself into the cradle? Because he seems to have had so much control the whole time, and he can simultaneously download himself into the cradle and still go out and be killed and be conscious. And he can be at 2 places at one time, and it doesn't necessarily mean he did it a couple of days before he decided to get shot in the head. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it calls into a lot of things into question when you start to think about the cradle.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. A lot of this has thrown so many things up in the air for me with Ford. A lot, actually.
Yeah, I was going along with you, and then all of a sudden you made a hard left turn, and I didn't follow that. I totally skipped on the logic there. You were talking about Ford being loaded into the cradle. Is that what the question is?
Right. He downloaded himself into the cradle, his consciousness. When did he do it? How long has he been in there? He never really stated, and it seems like he's been controlling stuff way beyond his reach for a while. Like, he was only one man. So I believe his consciousness had... Go ahead.
But you've got to remember, with the little Ford situation with the man in black, that's all programming. That is nothing more than, if you find this man, then you give him this sentence. If he responds this way, then you do it this way. And that's all programming is. So he doesn't have to be in little Ford to give those responses.
Oh, no, I don't mean that. But he was talking through him. You could hear his voice cracking through. As well as Alonzo and other people.
Right, but those are still Alonzo, just with different.
Yeah, I don't mean it's Ford. Literally, I mean, from inside the cradle, he can shoot code to a host if he wants to. Do you see what I mean? He is a code in a sense.
Ahead of time.
Well, I know, but I don't know. I just think he's been in there longer than we think. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I disagree 100%, only because the whole time during season 1, he's preparing for this big gala and all of the results that happen up to that point. So he's already preparing, little Ford, Alonzo, and Lawrence's daughter, etc. He's already got them programmed.
Right.
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't disagree with that. I mean, he still was himself out there. I don't know how to explain it at this point. I don't mean that he could be in the cradle watching, is all I mean. Like, how he seems like he could see everything and he knows everything that's going on. Well, the cradle pretty much records everything. I guess he accessed it some other way, but Bernard said you had to access it manually. So that's the only reason I think that he downloaded his consciousness in there.
Well, he took
beforehand. Yes,
he put his consciousness into the red ball that Bernard stole from that control room 13.
I got you.
Or 12 rather, and where the drone hosts were with him and Elsie. Before then, obviously, he got the ball. Ford programmed it in, and he deposited himself into the cradle. So he was able to live there for, obviously, a couple of weeks so far. And that's when he went into Bernard, right?
So, but I think, so you're wondering, when did he actually do that? Because he had to have done it while he was still a living human being, right? So probably around the time they killed Teresa, right? Is that her name?
Exactly.
Teresa? Yeah, it must have been around that time, I'm guessing. Sorry, I was reading the chat.
Right before the Man in Black entered the park, probably.
Yeah,
right when he entered the park, somewhere in that time.
Probably after that, right? Whenever Teresa's killed. It's very it does call into a lot of questions, though. Call to mind a lot of questions, because your consciousness is such a delicate thing. It changes on a minute by minute basis. So whatever Ford has been downloaded, whatever version of himself he downloaded, is different to the one that was killed. It changes so quickly.
Sure.
I mean, that's why it won't work with Delos, right? That must be one of the reasons why there's a kind of a glitch in this system, because you need to get it right at the moment when you stop living. It has to kind of, for me, that's the only way it can be truly you and as stable as you as possible. So I guess that there's a disconnect there.
Excuse me for just 1 second.
All right.
So Johnny, I want to ask you about the door, because I watched your video on this.
Oh gosh.
So William says there's a thing of wonder there. Dolores says it's a weapon, and Aki says that it's somewhere where our memories will be safe. And then he says to the man in black that you don't deserve death, and he actually says you don't deserve the exit, which to me that means that could be the door, right?
Right. It's so hard to even begin to think. I believe there's got to be more than one thing there. Mm-hmm. Like we talked about the whole simulator cradle. I would think they already have all the shells, the bodies that the people would use. I don't know. It's hard to know. There's a factory, and I wouldn't put it past a group like that to make some kind of biological weapon, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I was saying that to you as well. That I wonder, like, you could copy any major political leader, any CEO. You could have like the most powerful people in the world ready to just basically Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Manchurian candidate, like off the charts, right? Like, that could be, that in itself is a biological weapon, right?
Absolutely.
Right. You could do that. It's also, man, I lost my thought. Go ahead, AU. I know you're just going to say something.
Nope.
I got to find my place anyway. Oh, gosh.
Sorry, I interrupted you, Johnny. That was my fault.
Oh, no, I got to thinking too hard about it. That's what this show does.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that I liked about this episode. Oh, go ahead.
There's a lot of money in warfare. Even if it is just a regular biological weapon, I wouldn't doubt them having something on the side because there's so much money in war. That's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You would know.
Go ahead. Yes.
Wasn't there something in the first season, like the prostitutes and stuff having STDs and things like that they have to regularly like clear the hosts of disease and infection? Was there something about that?
Maeve had MRSA and in her abdomen, and I think it was because of the unclean repair guys, the guys in the white, like Sylvester and Felix.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they left a bullet in there or something.
That's true too. But I don't remember the STD part as far as it being.
Maybe I was just wondering, could I presume they could get STDs, right?
The host can't.
Okay.
Because they're not biological. I mean, they would be.
Okay, but could they carry them?
I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay.
If I'm not an STD expert, so
no, sorry, I didn't mean to focus on STDs, but I'm just wondering if it was a biological weapon that you could sneak out and like a really like dangerous disease through a host. They'll be uninfected, but they could infect humans in the world, right? So that would be
all the things, Mrs.
powerful
Cronall,
biological weapon.
That would have been the last subject I would have thought to be associated with you. So, yeah, you caught me off guard.
I do want to mention something. I don't know if we talked about it. Remember we talked about the dust being in the lab, all the cobwebs? I did do a rewatch, and there's no cobwebs. That's the cleanest lab I've ever seen. So
interesting.
Did Teresa... I don't know. It is very interesting. I can't figure out what's going on because 2 weeks shouldn't make that many cobwebs, especially in a hermetically sealed lab.
Yeah.
So it gets you to thinking about the timeline, and I've been thinking, could they be messing with time, some type of time experiment in the Valley Beyond? I know it's crazy, but not necessarily time travel.
I think there was a
But
blue
messing
phone
with-
booth down there.
But no, actually, Johnny, I'm glad you brought this up because this crossed my mind today about it's time travel, but technically, can the host, now I know instantly you're going to say, no way, but can the host go, like, okay, so if you want to put your computer, if you want to put it back in a safe mode, or if you've opened a dodgy website and you can kind of put it back to an earlier date. Could the hosts do that? Like, not be back at a, I don't think it'll be time travel, but go back to.
No,
like,
I know what you're saying. I agree. I think you can.
Yeah. So when Aki was telling Maeve his story, could she actually see that play out? If you know what I mean? Because
Absolutely.
sure, like, they probably have amazing memories, so they can visualize everything perfectly. If it's a computer, you can. So I assume she wasn't just hearing the story, she was seeing everything as well. So that in itself is a type of time travel. They may not be able to change what they've done, but they can. It's like Bran through the weirwood. They can experience everything, in that moment, I guess.
Absolutely.
Back in time. But the other thing I wanted to bring up, I saw a couple of people question when Aki is down, when he gets himself killed on purpose, and he ends up with the techs, and they say, oh, he's been alive for 10 years. How did this happen? And then they call the manager down or whatever, and she says, just, download the new software, and, just get him out there again. And they say, right, it's going to take 4 hours, and they take their break. And then a lot of people had a problem with the fact that he was able to get up, move around unnoticed, go down to cold storage, there's no one around. And it's very different to what we saw in season 1, where there's people always around, and people can see what the hosts are doing or whatever. If that happened, 20 years ago, I guess, when he went down cold storage?
My estimate would be 25 years, because
okay,
like
25, yeah. Chances are at that time maybe it wasn't as populated as it was, say, when we were watching it in season 1. Maybe they weren't as worried about like sabotage or the hosts potentially coming alive or anything like that. So I think it's plausible that he could do that. Sure. I don't necessarily think there's a grand conspiracy there, and I don't necessarily think Ford needs to be involved for that to happen. I think over time, as this company grows, they are going to get more worried about sabotage. I mean, if it is on an island in the middle of nowhere, maybe they just thought, oh, nobody's going to bother breaking in over here. But maybe over time they increase security. The more money they're making, the more people they hire, the more hosts they're making, the more horses, whatever they're dealing with all the time. So for me, I just wanted to put that out there. I don't think that that's a weakness. I think a loophole or something like that. I just think he probably was able to get away with walking around.
Yeah, when he saw Logan by the tree, he actually says that he sensed the newcomer coming up on him. So I think and that was even after that happened. So he does have that sense. And with the host network, I think he has that ability to sense other hosts as well.
So do you think he is, so we had Dolores whisper to Maeve in season 1, these violent delights, blah, blah, blah. And I think most of us assumed that was the moment Maeve started to glitch out or whatever.
Yep.
But it seems now that it wasn't, right? That had started with the maze. Do you think that Aki is the one who actually started that for Maeve, not Dolores?
Well, yeah, because if you remember in season 1, when she was in analysis, Ford and Bernard couldn't get her to calm down, and she actually killed herself in grief over her child. I think that's when she possibly woke up. Then they reset her like they did Aki, and then it took her a second to get it back.
Okay, so that was before Dolores whispered to her.
Yes.
I think it's the whisper that gets her going again. And I think she was definitely reset from the old narrative.
Okay.
Right.
And so with Aki then, do you think he's had any other interactions with Dolores, like the Deathbringer, back in the past? Do you think we're going to see something where they had interactions that were maybe much more influential than maybe?
I wouldn't have any idea. Honestly, I don't see them. Oh, you know what? Because of William and Lawrence, they were together, and they did have interactions with Ghost Nation before.
Yeah.
It's very possible because
That's
he
what I
does
was
talk
wondering.
about overcoming new enemies in this episode.
Because the
with his
reason I
other.
thought that was because one of the things that really affects Aki is when Logan says to him, "This is the wrong world." And that made me think of Dolores with that photograph in season 1 where it's a visual representation of the wrong world. Do you know what I mean? That's what made me think of that.
Yeah, I said it was an illusion. It could be, it's just basically a metaphor, in my opinion, for.
I couldn't help but laugh with Lauren's comment about Catherine's red pen.
Oh, there's always one around.
We're in trouble.
Yeah. Sorry, there's no homework. I have no marking today, thankfully. Yeah.
So I have a question in regards to Aki when he was walking around. Since you brought that up and how he was able to just go through there, why do you think that the Delos company abandoned the original train station where the globe is? Because he walks through it and you see the old Westworld symbol, etc., and then there's nothing said about why, because that was used in the original William and Logan entrance. Why that was abandoned? Do you have any ideas?
No, none. And it's funny you bring that up because do you think there's because I've been wondering, because there seems to be a lot of like mirrored settings and mirrored, obviously we know there's mirrored narratives as well, and narratives that are recycled and reused. It made me wonder, would there be like this is completely going away from your question actually, but it just made me wonder, would there be like a Shogun version of Ghost Nation, and a Shogun version of Aki? Yeah, so they're almost
the ninjas
certain
would be as close to that as possible.
Yeah. So will there? It made me wonder. I don't know though. I don't know why they would have. Do you have a theory on that?
Well, I think that's what the original, or what the new door is just another train station, and that's why they're able to go in and out of the park a different way. And that's what Aki's real design is that if he finds the door, he'll find a way out of the park.
Yeah. So you think it's just an exit then, the door?
I think the door is just another train station. Yeah.
Okay.
Or a spaceship station to another planet. I don't know.
Oh.
No, just kidding.
Yeah, I know we had that theory at season 1 where we thought they were terraforming or something. I still think that would have been cool. Yeah.
It's messed up if Ford's sending them to that door, and when there was the door at the Mesa hub, they could have just left on the train, probably.
Exactly.
Oh man, I had a thought, and I lost it. It's a bad day. Go ahead.
But you've got another question, right?
Oh, it's possible. Let's see.
If you don't, that's okay. We can.
I was actually I really enjoyed some of Aki's lines. He's some of the best lines of the entire season. When he says when he first sees Kohana, he's in cold storage. He says, "That was the moment I saw beyond myself. My pain was selfish." I loved that line. For me. It just like, for him, it seems like this this ability to empathize with her and his entire kind of species, if you like, is a huge moment. And I don't know, it made me question Dolores even more, and how in control she is of what she's doing, because I really haven't seen that from her.
She's dead set on her narrative, or at least her story of revenge. Until that's quenched, I don't think she's gonna have to have some kind of rude awakening, more than having to cut up in her father's head, which is gonna have to be pretty big for her to question or try to turn around. You know, I thought Teddy might start to bring her back, but no. Teddy's just a beast now. So the White narrative is pushed hard. I think she's going to have to complete it or die to get out of it. And I guess completing it would be, I don't know what her mission is exactly. She's just trying to get there. She hasn't really said what she's done, has she, AU? She's going to do. She's just going there. There's a weapon.
Right.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, will anything quench that thirst for vengeance that she has?
Not unless Ford turns her off.
Yeah, yeah. So do you think Ford, because he's all about mistakes, and mistakes are important because they teach you something and they move the species on and all that kind of thing, but do you think he's made like a huge colossal mistake with Dolores? Do you think he regrets what's happened with Dolores? Because that scene with Aki where he's scalping all of them, it was just like he genuinely seemed surprised. Maybe I'm being naive, but he did seem surprised about this flower growing in the dark.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was not only shocked about Kissy's scalp, because obviously he found that, because that was almost the same exact time as when Kissy was scalped. And so that's why he went after the Ghost Nation people and realized this is happening all over the place. It's at Maeve's house. You know, Kissy's got it. What's going on? And so that's why he woke up Aki at that point and just moved forward with, let's find out what's going on. And that's why he put him in analysis right away. So he could really find the truth, or what he thought was the truth.
So Aki says to Maeve towards the end that, or maybe it's when he's in cold storage, that they're all bound together, the living and the damned. And then he says to her towards the end that he couldn't save her. And I just wondered, is that saving her from being damned? I wasn't really sure what he means by being damned. Is it just dead? Is it being put in cold storage? Or is it being switched off or switched on? Is that what he's worried about? People being like him?
The damned are the human beings, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because it kind of cut for Lee, straight to Lee. But, you know, that's just my opinion. He has every right. Well, but see, it doesn't make sense because he saved humans as well. So you're right. Maybe he just means sinners.
I mean, it's
hard to say.
It's always that question: if you were in the Matrix, do you want to know you're in the Matrix, or do you just want to be in the Matrix? Like, I feel like I don't want to take the pill. I'll be okay. I don't want to eat gruel.
So I think
being Neo.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, in regards to the damned, the people that have their memories stolen, which is what happens to him, is what he was talking to, because that's really what he's trying to escape, is the person that puts him to sleep and takes their memories. That was his biggest fear and why he lived for 10 years. So that's what my opinion is.
But he also says that his pain is selfish, and in comparison to the things that some of the other hosts have had to put up with, the murders and the rapes and everything, his pain is kind of selfish. He doesn't seem to necessarily have been put through that kind of trauma. Maybe that's what he meant. That's I like that. As soon as you become aware of that, like, and he says that to me, that he starts off by saying, you can remember everything, you can see all the different paths. It's like, once you know that, you can't unknow it. And is there any way to escape the trauma that has caused? I mean, if you've got like infinite memory and infinite ways of remembering things because you're a machine, that is going to really, like Dolores, it's going to really mess you up.
Yeah, this whole episode was
a version of being damned, right?
It's basically a curse of eating from the tree of knowledge. Basically, this whole episode.
Absolutely, yeah.
To be ignorant is blissful. So, I can't. I agree with you on that.
And Dolores seems to want people to remember that. You know, especially with Teddy, she wants him to. You should be feeling all of this all of the time. It's like, yeah. Sorry, Johnny, I interrupted you again.
Oh no, it's okay. We got like a slight delay anyway. I lost my place again. I'm so sorry. I feel so dumb today. Let's see. Unbelievable. Go ahead, ask a question, somebody. I think I saw a question in here. Hold on. But go ahead.
My question is, did we see the reason why there's so many cults in this world, where, you know, some babbling naked man in the desert, like at the Burning Man concerts, are being listened to by a wise man, and some nugget of truth is told, and they just take it to the wrong level. That's what I was seeing when Aki was talking to Logan.
It's funny. I just finished reading Homo Deus. It's the sequel to Homo Sapiens, I guess. And there's this whole thing about we're not individuals. We're often individuals. Like, we've got a lot of conflict in both sides of our brain going on all the time. And I feel like these hosts were made to be individuals, but that's not actually an accurate representation of what a brain does. And so sometimes they do need to be part of a culture. They need to be part of a community. They need to have alternatives. And they've been made in such a way where it's really black and white. If something is said, then you say this. If this is said, you say this instead. And it's not an accurate way in which a brain works. And maybe that's another reason why they can't map a human consciousness onto these things, because that isn't the way we work. Sometimes we go to say one thing, we say something completely different. There isn't a concrete answer every time. So I think sometimes they are looking for simple truths because they're programmed to do that, but they're not supposed to be doing that either, because they're supposed to be accurate representations of what a human being is, but they can't be that because they haven't been programmed that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they're in a loop.
Yeah.
Right. Very true. I was going to ask about the flies, and do you think the flies perhaps carry a code that maybe they're not even, you know, we had nanobots and all that technology, so, and there's something with the flies. Is it just symbolism? It seems to be more than that, because they're landing on every single conscious host there is. Plus, Dolores, being the Deathbringer, famously kills one at the end of the first episode in season 1. So it makes me wonder. Now, I can't remember if a fly has landed on Maeve. I don't think so.
I can't remember that, no.
And
Chrissy says that Arnold is the fly.
And you got to remember, this is at the time that Arnold is killed, which is before William arrives at the park.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be symbolism.
From the storyteller standpoint.
Right. But it's very interesting. I know that. I don't know. It's crazy. They talk about the blue tongue being spread by flies and a disease being spread by flies. And then you get the violent delights have violent ends, which almost seems like an illness they get. So that's the only reason I really bring it up. Just, I don't know.
I mean, as you said before, like war is that's where you make your money, you know, and there's definitely a huge military element here. I kind of feel like they must be in some sort of biodome or something, because they would have to control things, like they'd have to control animals coming into this ecosystem, birds and things like that. So I don't know how they do that.
Yeah, even if it was an island, there couldn't be
No.
that much control over the animal and fish population. But at any rate,
there would be a rat, there would be a roach somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So sorry, it's just with the flies, there's every possibility that they're not actual flies, of course. Yeah.
Right.
And I'm sorry, I don't know who it was that said it first. I think it was Linda, but she was talking about the man in black doing all the things that he's doing to waken the host. What do you think about that?
To waken the host, like to snap them out of what Ford has put them on?
Right.
Okay. Is that in so?
And
So
I don't think so.
I said it earlier.
Not that good of a guy. And he didn't know that much about it at that point that we know of, that he tells us. It seems he was pretty ignorant of what the maze even was, and that the host could even become conscious. He still doesn't even think the hosts are conscious. He thought Maeve was just Ford. He keeps mistaking everyone for Ford, which I think is going to be slightly his downfall as well. But, I mean, his daughter's probably going to be his downfall.
So I'm not sure, because young William, so there was a gap, there was a point in time where young William decided he wasn't going to go back to the park, right?
There was?
He was going to take a break. And then Julia kills herself. So in the meantime, something happened in William's life outside of Westworld. And it makes me wonder, because he was so angry with Dolores. He was so like pathologically, unnecessarily, illogically angry with this host that he had fallen for and wasn't showing anything back. It makes me wonder, at one stage, did he think maybe she was sentient and then maybe was convinced she wasn't, or maybe she was reprogrammed by Ford at that stage, or Arnold, or whatever? No, would have been Ford, right? And then maybe he realized, oh, I was just playing tricks on myself, I'm not going back there, I was losing the plot. And now that he's back in and he realizes what's happened, I don't know, maybe I said it earlier on, I think there might be other intentions that are not necessarily coming from a place of evil with him and these hosts. Maybe he realizes the true danger of them if they ever got out, and he's trying to stop that. I don't know.
Well, he was telling Lawrence he was going to burn the whole thing to the ground, that they were all going to die.
I just think if you look at the actions... Sorry.
Basically, he was asking Lawrence to go on one last adventure with him. That didn't turn out so well for him, but go ahead, AU.
I think if you look at the story as a whole, to answer that question, and you see what he did to Dolores in the beginning, that we see him in episode 1, and what he did to Lawrence by cutting his throat to give blood to Teddy, I think all he's doing is what he has to do in order to progress the story. He wants to find the maze. He wants to find the truer meaning of life. And now he thinks he's going to find it through the door. And he doesn't even know what the door is, even though he made the door. That's the man in black is basically the Greyhound that Ford talks about in the first episode, where he's just chasing this fabric, and he doesn't even know what it is he's going to do with it once he gets it. So yeah, I don't think he's doing anything other to help the host. Let's put it that way.
No. And plus
It's
now we know for sure that we have two different types of hosts, right? Now we know like at least two very different types of hosts with very different agendas. So how much do you think Aki is controlled by Ford, or does Ford have nothing got to do with him?
Akecheta definitely is controlled by Ford or Ford's underlings.
Really? What makes you think that?
Well, in the last time we saw him, when he woke up with the bear, Ford woke him up to bring him there.
But
in terms wanted that conversation.
But before that, do you think Ford started his journey, or did that just happen by accident?
Well,
like
Ford said
the maze.
that it happened by accident, but we gotta take everything Ford says with a grain of salt, even though he was alone and there was no one else there to talk.
Remember, Ford had the host at the hotel with Logan. So he was in charge of Akecheta at that time. And when he brought him back to the park, he set him up as a native and gave him his narrative that way.
That's actually
Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. No, it brings me to a point that Mr. C made about that when we saw that point when they said he's been alive for 10 years, he instantly said, of course, Ford counted on that, because he would count on the techs and the staff just completely discounting Ghost Nation. Like they'd forget about them, because that probably isn't a narrative that most people go to experience in Westworld, right? So they would completely underestimate them and probably just ignore them. So he was able to kind of live on for 10 years unnoticed.
And he had been watching him, and I'm pretty sure he watched him and Kahana go out to the Valley Beyond, and then she got taken, and that's when he got his narrative changed, right? Ain't that when he got his narrative changed, you?
One time,
after she got taken. And so I think it had something to do with trying to keep him from becoming conscious, possibly. But then nothing Ford did kept him from becoming conscious, and I believe Ford just went with it. But that's my opinion on it.
I think as well, like at Ford, the people that, like, so we've Maeve and Dolores and Akecheta, and then so it seems as if like they're people that that would have been underestimated necessarily, like that Ford could have them fly under the radar, because there are women in a time where, you know, they're not going to get respect, and people are going to maybe not interact with them that much, only for a certain reason. Maybe Maeve is a prostitute, so she's going to be seen as no more than a sex doll by a lot of people. So I think, whereas somebody like Teddy, some of the kind of Hector, things like that, the I guess the more fun stories, if you like, the big kind of typical Western heroes, it would be really hard to not have their glitching be noticed as much, if you know what I mean. They'd be more front and center, if you like.
Hey, AU, if, let's say, Akecheta was the first host to become conscious, do you think Ford would have used his code to help build Maeve?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just thought about that.
Ford
would make sense.
Make a better host.
Right, because Arnold wrote the original code for the Reveries, right?
Correct.
At least that's what we've been told.
When I started watching this episode and he was talking to Maeve's daughter, it was like, obviously I had considered it before, but it was like, okay, anyone could be this kid's parent, if you like, or could have been this kid's parent at some stage. Like, anyone could have a connection to anyone in this world. So it kind of opened up all sorts of narrative possibilities, I guess, in my head. Obviously, we know that for sure, but yeah, it's interesting how the other members of the tribe notice there's something wrong as well. They don't necessarily have anything whispered to them or anything said. They just know that isn't the person that's supposed to be.
Kohana's replacement didn't even look Native American. She looked so different. She had like green eyes and stuff. It was weird. It was very sad though. Especially, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, sorry. No, again, just like that bit of like when he takes the braid and brings it to the mother, and it's like, again, that's him. I think that's him like drawing on a cultural thing that he may not necessarily have. That's him like doing something that's a bit outside of what he should be doing. So there's just so many things with the scalping, the myth of the others down below, the braid, even like when there was one thing that I didn't quite understand. If he's been alive for 10 years, does that mean he's just been in an endless loop of narratives? Because we see him be caught. Mm-hmm. So it was yeah, that was the one thing I did. So I guess he never has an opportunity to be killed in his narrative. It's very negligent on the text part. You're on mute, AU.
Sorry, in the story, the Indians always kill the cowboys, and there's always cowboys on the side going, "Watch this," type of thing. So that's, I think, why it was just his narrative. I don't think it had anything to do with him deviating from his narrative.
I get that, but I at some stage, if there are cowboy guests, they would have an opportunity to kill Ghost Nation, right? So
right,
it's just interesting that that never came up in 10 years.
Yeah, because I believe a guest kills him when he decides to die. He's like, "No, don't shoot him. I'm gonna go stab him," because that it's more fun that way, apparently. But Ford had to have something to do with it to let him blossom, as he said. Exactly. Just for the simple fact that every time when he wakes up, he goes on his same narrative. Now, he could be remembering, but it seemed like he was stuck on that loop for a while until he saw Kohana again. And then that broke him out of it. Kind of like Maeve got broke out of it by Dolores. And he was in the middle of cutting old Buddy's throat, and then he realized, and then just all of a sudden remembered everything. Or Kiksuya.
So we see Aki's alive for 10 years. He's in a narrative that affords him that opportunity. Do you think that Ford then realized with Maeve, well, she's not going to get the opportunity to be a blossoming flower in the dark if she's going to be in a narrative where she's going to certainly be killed. So we need to get her into a narrative where she isn't. So that's probably why Maeve was moved, right?
Maeve was moved to the Mariposa?
Yeah. Do we know why she's moved?
I think it was because she showed consciousness.
You're talking about a 15-year period there because we don't really know how long she was at the pastoral home with her daughter before she was killed. So that, to say what you said it's kind of misleading because we don't know what her first narrative was.
Well, we know it wasn't where her last narrative was, though.
Correct.
Yeah.
But that was only a year, so.
Yeah, but what I mean is, so in her last narrative, there's a chance for her to be alive longer, if you know what I mean. So like,
it's more of a touristy part of the park. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a chance like she'll have that time to blossom. She won't necessarily be like in a narrative where she's killed on a daily basis or even a weekly basis or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, look at what happened to Teddy. He got shot right there next to her.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that necessarily. I think in the prairie home, I think that would have been the safest place because there's no. The only time that anything happened there was when the Cowboys and Indians fought, but that had nothing to do with her.
Mm-hmm.
And if dying had anything to do with consciousness, Teddy would be elite.
Yes,
5,746 times, I do believe.
Yeah, no, but staying alive is the key.
Yeah, I was just throwing a joke. But yeah, that might be why Teddy's so held back, because he's been killed so many times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's possible.
His reset button is broken.
Yeah.
Then Dolores, did Dolores die quite a bit as well?7maybe not. But Teddy, Teddy is.
But not as much as Teddy, I don't think.
Yeah. Poor old Teddy.
But didn't Rebus and the other host come up there every night?
Yeah, I don't know. I do know that was their narrative. I just don't know if that was the end game, is to have her killed.
I think they only come up there when they had a guest to bring, but I'm not sure. No, because Teddy killed him the first time without a guest there, so no, the man in black was there. I don't know. I'm confusing myself now. Go ahead.
Do either of you have any other questions?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I've got one.
I'm good.
If you don't,
go ahead.
While you're looking, let me put it that way. So, Akecheta comes into town when Dolores is killing everybody and sees her gravesite. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Why did she have a gravesite already, Dolores?
Well, she had one since Arnold made her the maze. Because what was the riddle? It's a place she'll never be, and I don't know, a place you'll never see and a place you'll never go, something like that. But I do think it's kind of foreshadowing. That's why I asked earlier if I think Dolores was going to make it after the end of the season. I don't know if I did say that, but that was going to be one of my questions, if Dolores does make it. Because I know she is the Deathbringer, but that also foreshadows her death, in my opinion. Seeing her grave like that and seeing the pale mare run by. But that's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's more symbolic than anything else. That it's to do with her being associated with death. Yeah.
Cool.
No, there's Ford's just when he was having that moment where he said the maze was a misbegotten symbol. Yeah, it just made me wonder about Arnold's death and the actual truth behind that, potentially. Yeah.
I don't know. I think I brought this up on the MMR's channel. Something about, I think it's possible that Ford did kill Arnold.
I think so too.
I think it's very possible that he was going to try to sabotage the park and Ford had him killed. I don't know. I got this weird feeling because there's just so many unanswered questions with Arnold. Nothing makes sense.
I feel like they had competing ideas of what the host should be, and it was much more than like it was more than like an economic thing. It was like a philosophical and moral dilemma that they couldn't get over it. Like it was properly existential, and I do think he had something to do with Arnold's death.
And Ford talks about Delos, the money man, but Ford doesn't seem like the type of person that doesn't like money and doesn't like wealth. I don't know. He contradicts himself so much that it just makes my head explode, because he says one thing and his actions show another. And it's just really confusing for me. To even say that he wants the host to live, the only reason that I think he would want them to live is so he can control them. I don't think he wants them to live so that they can actually really be free.
Correct.
I mean, just look at everything he's done to Bernard, who's supposed to be a representation of his former best friend. So
And he gets screwed every chance he gets, right?
Poor Bernard. Or Fernarnold.
Yeah. It is good to have him back, though. I miss Ford, I have to say, this season. I'm glad to have him back.
Oh, yes. His acting brings the level of the show up incredibly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So you started off, Johnny, by asking about the Man in Black. So do you think he'll make it out of the next episode? As a human being, let's put it that way.
Out of the next episode, no, I don't think he's going to be allowed to kill himself either. And I think that photo we see of him trying to shoot himself in the head, I think that's when he first enters the park. I think he possibly wants to kill himself because remember how he said he didn't feel anything after he killed Maeve and his daughter and how disappointing it was to him. And I think he possibly tries to kill himself then. But as far as what's going to happen to him in the future, I do think his daughter's got some plans for him, and we're going to find out that he did a little more to his wife than we're being led to believe.
Mm-hmm. It'd be interesting if she put him in a host that if they get the park up and running again, it'd be interesting if they put him in a host that was like constantly in a narrative where they were abused. And so that he could, like, you know, feel that. I wonder, will we see with Maeve and stuff, like her body looks wrecked and it doesn't look like they're fixing her anytime soon. So, like, you reckon Thandie Newton is staying, which is good news for me. I love her. But I wonder, will we see Maeve outside of that body in the next episode? In a similar way, we've seen her kind of talking through her daughter, not talking but listening through her daughter. Will we see her do that with other hosts, do you think?
Go ahead, Johnny.
Yeah, I think that's going to be how she's going to, the only way she's going to be able to take down Dolores. Mm-hmm. Even if she does. It's interesting.
If she took Teddy.
Yes.
That would be brilliant.
There's a few things that can happen there. I know she's gonna get patched up.
Oh, is that what that is?
It's nice. Just at the gala.
Nice. The long night.
But it's very long this year. Oh, what was that? What were we talking about? I'm sorry.
So I said, will she take another host? Maybe Teddy. Maybe Hector. God, that'd be terrible.
I think she's going to get out of there in that body, at least for now. I think she's going to get fixed up. All she needs is a good tech in there. And she can get fixed up because it's all torso shots. As long as the control unit's not messed up and her body's not ripped off.
Yeah, because we see her in the preview with the bulls running down the hall in front of her. Okay. with a gray blanket over her shoulders, kind of like a poncho. So I think we do see her. This show usually does every other episode kind of thing where they follow up the story. So I think the next episode is going to be concentrating on the Man in Black in the real world prior to him coming to Westworld again. And in episode 10 is when we're going to see them.
Yeah, we might see her bust out at the end of this episode, next episode, or something like that, and then that'd be like the end of it. But I do agree with you, AU.
Can I ask one more question? I promise it's the last. Just on Sizemore, he was told when he was in with Maeve, you can't be in here, and there isn't really a place for him anymore. They don't need narrative right now, so. Where does, like, he's obviously, I guess his function on the show is going to be helping Maeve, but in terms of like him being out of a job pretty soon, unless they get this park up and running, there's no real place for him there. So unless he goes with Ghost, right?
I think Ford and Bernard is going to use him, then kill him because Ford hates Lee. That's my opinion. That's my short and sweet answer on that.
Wow. Okay.
I just think he doesn't like his limited understanding of the host. That's as far as him personally. I don't think he cares.
Yeah, well, I don't know what he cares about besides being God. Other than that,
right.
It would be beautifully ironic if he ends up understanding the hosts in a more fundamental way than Ford does. If he causes the hosts, because of his ability as a narrator, a storyteller, somebody who makes, you know, their world for them, if he ends up handing the hosts power that Ford doesn't foresee.
This is a great question from Sword in the Darkness. Dolores says as she's shooting people, the same don't deserve to make it to the valley beyond. What do you think makes her decide who dies and who goes to the valley?
I feel like Dolores can read code as well. We haven't seen it, but she knows what Maeve was. She seems like she knew. The woman she knows would have never been captured. There's something a little more to Dolores, and also she calls him friend while she's shooting him. So that leads me to think that there's still yet another process to happen, that possibly the park isn't going to close. Of course, it isn't going to close. We still got to have a Westworld, don't we? So there's going to be some manipulation with Hale, in my opinion. If she wants to stay alive, she's going to listen to what Ford wants her to do. And I think they're going to reopen the park somehow after seemingly getting everything under control. But, you know, that's just my opinion.
I agree. I wonder, does she have an ability to read code? It would make sense to me if not all hosts are created equally. Like, there are like some hosts that are just totally incapable of reaching their potential because of whatever reason. There's not as much effort put into them, or they're more like, you know, the horses or whatever like that. And maybe she just goes, nah, do you know what? You're never going to be of any use to me. So goodbye. Whereas Maeve, I mean, she probably should have killed Maeve, but she doesn't.
No.
So yeah, there's potential.
And she tells her we're free to choose our own path, which makes no sense when she kills Ghost Nation.
Yeah.
I'm guessing there's some way she can tell if they're ready code-wise or not.
It kind of goes back to it goes back to AU's thing about the cults. You know, some hosts seem to be willing to just be followers, and there's only so many followers she needs, clearly.
Right. Yeah, we don't see Akecheta there either, so it's going to be interesting to see how they get away. Assuming they do, I hope so. More than likely they will, and to keep the storyline going. We
don't have it's possible that Maeve's daughter would be one of the type of host that Dolores would take out if she doesn't see any kind of, you know, she seems to have a hierarchy of hosts in her head for some reason.
Yeah, the Confederados are not one of them.
No, but see, she didn't like them because her daddy fought for the other side. What was it? They weren't called for the Union, but yeah, it does go to her backstory, which leads you to think how, you know, Dolores isn't that conscious, in my opinion. She is doing exactly what Ford wants. That's it.
Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah. We're all in agreement, finally. On that note, we're going to stop. After 20 questions. Yeah, that's great.
Oh, goodness.
That is funny because it's really one of the reasons why I love live streaming on this show, is because it is so deep. It's not just a normal episode of fill in the blank, Better Call Saul, etc. You know what I mean? It's just there's so many points of view, and your motivation for this character is totally different than my motivation for liking this character, and it's just awesome.
And
well, mine changes every day.
Yeah, yeah, me too. And as I said to you, like ironically, in the most linear episode we've had in maybe ever, we didn't do scene by scene. It was like, no, you can't do the most linear episode scene by scene. That would be crazy.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's so great about this episode. Like I said in the beginning, is that it was so simple, and yet it was so complicated the same way. Just absolutely.
It was a beautiful episode.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for inviting me on, AU. I'm so glad to be able to talk about this. And Johnny, it was nice to meet you.
You too as well, Miss Cronall. Very nice. Thank you so much, AU. It's been great.
You're very welcome. Why don't you tell us where to find you on your YouTube channel and social media, Johnny?
Well, it's just YouTube for now, but it's at Johnny B Crazy. Hopefully AU's got me linked below. And just check it out. I'll be doing some social media soon. I'm trying to get my computer situation fixed up right now, but yeah.
Thanks so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I couldn't do it without you, because Mrs. Cronall has an influence on me that makes me think way too much. So I appreciate it. Catherine, tell us about your channel, because you
I've got two.
And you also do a Game of Thrones reread with another YouTuber friend of ours. So tell us about what's going on there.
So I've got two channels. As of a couple of weeks ago, my Mrs. Cronall channel is my main channel, but it's mainly kind of nails and lifestyle and stuff like that. So I was doing our massive Song of Ice and Fire reread on that channel, but after we finish up A Storm of Swords in a couple of weeks, we're going to move over to my Catherine Cronin channel. Everything is linked on I think my Mrs. Cronall channel is linked down below, so you'll find everything linked over there. I will start doing Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones theory videos this summer. So yeah, they'll probably be shite, but sure, it'll be all right. It's all for fun. I like a bit of tinfoil.
Which channel do you have? The
Mrs. Cronall at the moment is you'll find everything over there.
Okay, so the Tokyo trip that you just went on?
Yeah, everything is over there. Yeah.
Awesome.
So I'll give you plenty of notice when I'm moving all the nerdy stuff over to Catherine Cronin.
That video when you came home and showed what you brought was so insightful. I wanted to tell you that. I forgot to put the notes in there. The organizational skills of Mr. Cronall and yourself are off the chart. Yeah. I don't do my nails, as you can see, they're just plain, but I love watching your videos. Yours.
I have Ghost Nation on my nails right now.
Nice. Ghost Nation. That's awesome.
Let's see, I don't know if you can see it there. And Westworld.
Perfect.
So yeah,
perfect. That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming in and watching the video with us, asking all the great questions.
Thank you so much, AU. And I don't think people give you enough credit for being an awesome YouTuber and just so supportive to everybody. So everybody emoji claps for AU. You're amazing. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. That means a lot coming from you. Yeah, it just means the world. So you guys have a great night. There's so many other live streams on. Definitely want to check out History of Westeros has one on the prequel. By the way, tomorrow we will have Lauren's Corner. Lauren Cullen from Ireland is going to be on, and we're going to talk about the prequel as well, and possibly some hot pie and some ginger ale and some other fun stuff. So thanks for coming, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow. And in the meantime, you guys take care.